So I think it's really important to always invest in creating a shared understanding for any new project you're going to be working on with your team or group. So here's what I'm talking about. Over here, we have the business model canvas. Now it's maybe the most iconic type of alignment diagram, but it's not the only one. There's a whole book called Mapping Experiences that's worth checking out, but there's also some pretty useful tools for projects that might be worth looking into. So on top of the business model canvas, you also have the impact map, and the team alignment diagram is also really good. So what are these tools used for? Well, they're very good at sussing out a couple things. Making sure there's alignment in your group about what the project is about and what are people going to be doing, the different factors that come into play. It's a great way of also calling out any risks and unknowns, as well as what some assumptions are being held by different parts of the group. So here's a difficult situation though, and that happens almost every time. It's pretty dangerous. When you ask people, do they have an idea of what the project's about? They're going to say yes. Now the problem is they're all going to have a different version of yes. They may be focusing on a different part of the project, or they may have thought about it at a high level, but not really down in the required level of detail. So an exercise like this is useful because it forces all of those ideas out onto paper or onto a wall, where these ideas can then be discussed, reviewed, challenged, and questioned. Now, why I say it's worthwhile to always do this exercise is if you look at the payoff function of doing the alignment exercise, it looks a bit like this. We have two axes with positive and negative outcomes when we do or when we don't do the alignment exercise. And the curve looks something like this. Now, if you're doing the alignment exercise, you're going to be in this quadrant over here. You're going to be able to get the benefit of identifying issues, and it's going to pay off down the road for your project. Now, the worst case situation might show something like this, where you've already established that everybody had the right idea, that all the people were aligned, that all the risks had been identified, and that there were no assumptions. It's fantastic if that happens. You won't lose anything except for maybe the cost and time of the meeting, but nothing bad will come out of it. But if you want to skip this meeting, then here's where you're going to have to hang out. This is the negative area, where obviously everything may be starting fine at the start of the project, but as you go on, you're going to realize and run into problem after problem after problem, and that you can't really get out of it until you do maybe like a reset. So watch out for that. Now, these things are very useful, but they're not easy. And one of the reasons why they're not easy is because people really want to get their work done. So they often have no problem. Once a project's been signed off and approved, they want to start on time so they can finish on time. And they'll spend a lot of time, maybe months, and they'll spend lots of money to make sure that everything's going smoothly. If you try to say, hey, let's spend maybe just a few hours, carve out some of that time, get all the partners involved, all the stakeholders, all the development teams to come together and make sure we're aligned on what we're going to do, you might face a lot of resistance. Oh, the meeting's too big. People are too busy to do this. Everything's in some sort of design document that you just need to follow. So you need to learn how to get around those challenges, and to make sure you don't lose face, once you're in the room with everybody, you need to be able to identify and ask the right questions to pull out the correct information for every part of the quadrant